Welcome back to Saturday Social. We're joined by Loz and Zach. Okay, loads of unbelievable managers knocking about at the moment. I mean, the job Glasner's doing, the job Iraola is doing, Bournemouth up in second in the league, and that got us thinking about the best gaffers, didn't it, Carl?
It did. There's 20 in the Premier League, as we know, but we want you guys to rank your top 10. Now, of course, with debate, this will chop, it'll change depending on who you've chosen. Let us know your thoughts as well. Let's start with 10. Zac Djellab, who have you got?
In my opinion, one of the most underrated managers, I think, in the last 10 years, or longer, really, 20 years in the Premier League, to be honest. It's David Moyes. Done such a good job kind of wherever he's gone. I think even if you look at the United situation now and what he stepped into post-Ferguson, he did okay. Then to go to West Ham, get them into Europe, win them a European piece of silverware as well. And now even just see him kind of back at Everton and getting them playing really good football, taking them over, making sure they avoid the drop. This year, one of my kind of hot takes at the start of the season was I think they could maybe get European football next season with him at the helm. But yeah, I think he's.
What do we think of the game against who did they
West
play?
Ham recently?
West Ham on Monday.
On Monday, yeah.
At the full-time whistle, there were boos. Yeah. I heard the boos at full time, and I know that they went out of the Carabao Cup, and that was a real dagger, wasn't it, to lose to Wolves, and then to drop points against West Ham. But is that harsh?
I think it's harsh to boo him. Yeah.
I think it's a little bit harsh. I also think there are times where things come up in the mix on TV that maybe aren't as prominent.
Maybe some refereeing decisions and stuff getting booed as well.
And I think often we attribute it to the manager because of the result. Broadly, every Everton fan that I speak to, and obviously I've got family splits and friend splits, they love him and they love what he's done so far. And what they really love is just that he's brought a sense of stability.
Yes.
But there are now people like Jack Grealish in the side,
Unreal.
No, they're not just in the side. They're actually performing, and they're performing to a level that
well.
a lot of people thought maybe had gotten away from them or wasn't possible, and maybe if they'd gone somewhere else, they wouldn't have had that same motivation. So I think overall, he's very deserving to be on this list.
And let's make it very clear, it's not just this season, it's the whole of 2025. So it's what they did last season as well, coming into this season. That's number 10.
That is number 10.
Who's going in at 9?
Number 9 is a manager who found a new club this summer, Thomas Frank. Somebody who, for years, I felt like has been quite underrated, done such a good job with Brentford. You see every single year they would sell one of their star players, they'd find somebody, or he'd change their system slightly, adapt to a manager, always really good in press conferences. And it felt like, this was the time for his kind of next step, definitely. If, to be honest, not, I thought about 2 years late as well. And I know Spurs fans are a little bit, at the moment, in two mindsets. I know if you look at the league table, it's not too bad. They had the poor result, really, with the draw away at Bodo Glimt on the weekend, midweek. They struggled against Wolves on the weekend just gone. And so I think a couple of fans are finding it a little bit difficult. They thought, especially at the start of the season, when they won their first game, things were going to go really, really well. But as a manager who, in 2025, has managed to do really, really well, I think he's at the perfect stage. I think 9th is a really solid place.
Happy with that, Loz?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the right move for him, really, isn't it? It was the right club, right time, got to stay in his city. And I also think the instant impact that he had at Spurs was so noticeable, not only on the style of play, but also on the way the players felt and just looked around the club, and that made a big difference to me.
Of course, Ange was successful winning the trophy at Spurs, but it feels like with Thomas Frank, maybe this is stability for the years to come.
I think sustainability is the thing that Spurs are looking for, right? And that, especially with everything that's going on around the club at the moment, with all the rumours flying around, they need a manager that's just going to be a solid pair of hands, that isn't up and down the league, that isn't competing well in one competition and then not doing the same in the other. And that is exactly what Thomas Frank is.
Agreed.
All right, 8.
Number 8 is someone who's had an incredible 2025, that's for sure. Nuno Espirito Santo. I thought it was very, very unlucky and unfortunate to have kind of lost his job at Nottingham Forest. Obviously, things haven't necessarily got better for them after him leaving. I think he suits West Ham really, really well. I feel like in the last year and a half, there's been an appreciation. Everyone wants to talk about like attacking football and ball possession football. And I think there's been an appreciation for Nuno and what he's been managing to do with kind of what the assets he's had. I think at West Ham, the players at his helm are really, really strong for the football that he wants to play. And somebody who, when you think about how it ended at Spurs, his kind of reputation felt like it was really low, really, really low. And even when he joined Forest, people weren't like over enamoured and over the moon of him becoming the manager there. And then now you look at him post, obviously leaving Forest and becoming at West Ham. I feel like his stocks were at the highest they've been in a long, long time.
So,
no, go on.
the only thing I'd say then is, especially if we're making this list, and it is right now in 2025, I think if you're going to put Nuno there, I think David Moyes deserves more recognition or to be higher up. Because Nuno arguably is a bit more ideological, in inverted commas, than David Moyes is. I think Moyes has spanned quite a few more eras and been able to compete in more of those eras. So maybe deserves more recognition. But I'm not therefore saying, obviously what he's done was great. I think David Moyes has also done that. And I think when you were talking about Everton looking up the league, I'm just thinking
maybe 2026
that way.
2026, David could end up going in fourth.
Well, we'll see next year.
There's a bit of an argument as well. Forest fans might be looking at this and saying 2025, towards the back end of the season, Forest really kind of threw away some of those higher level spots, didn't they? The summer didn't go particularly well. The start of this season hasn't gone particularly well.
But the summer isn't Nuno's. Half the reason Nuno went is supposedly due to the summer's issues.
Was that also
not his fault?
Were those summer issues also due to the end of the season that was possibly also disrupted by other things that were going on around the club at the time? And arguably maybe he's dealt well in kind of choppy waters. I think he's done relatively well in that time.
A manager that's 8th out of 20, would you say then that he's the man to completely turn West Ham's fortunes round?
I think it's one of for the options that are available and that would have gone to West Ham, that was number one. Genuinely, I think Nuno's come in and can do. I think you already saw it against Everton slightly as well. Like he's made them a little bit more defensively secure. Their defence was really, really poor under Graham Potter, and the attack wasn't much better. And I think under Nuno, West Ham are. There's always talks about the West Ham way they want to play a certain style of football, because that's kind of the reason they got a little bit annoyed about David Moyes. But I think right now, they want to go back to some stability. They want to make sure they don't end up in the near the relegation zone or in a relegation battle. And I do think Nuno will get that then for them season. 7 is someone who could be a little bit higher, to be honest. He's an incredible manager and I think has an incredible future.
Ooh, this is low.
And
wow,
that feels low.
Yeah, I think there are the reasons I'll bring up for 2025 for other managers I'll mention later, but he is incredible. He is going to be one of the best managers out there for years to come. I think he's going to end up managing some top clubs. That's not to say Bournemouth isn't, and he's doing an incredible job at Bournemouth. He makes players better, which is arguably the number one job of a manager. He makes them, and just like you look at some of the players that he is continuously, whether they are leaving or he's bringing in a new back line like he has this season, and just managing to keep the stability there. I think that's someone that is a manager that shows he's got a really good system. The players really believe in him, and he continues to just season on season.
I mean, they're second.
I was about to say they are second in the league.
It's a joke, but we're only a few games into this season. And I think when you look at 2025 at the moment, a lot more has to go into what happened last season as well. But he is mightily impressive. And again, like maybe come December, he might end up moving 3 places or so.
You hate playing him. You look at opposition managers,
right? Yeah,
and especially, even as Liverpool and Chelsea fans, we probably used to look at Bournemouth and go, okay, maybe that's 6 points we can take. You don't look at Bournemouth in the same way with him. And I think the big signings who've left this summer or they've gone elsewhere, they've not exactly kicked on in the locations they are. And I think that has shown a lot about his coaching and the system he has. He's sort of that archetype of what the modern manager in shape is in the Premier League.
He's made Semenyo the best left winger in the league.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see anybody in that category right now. The goal output, like the physicality, the work he does off the ball.
Trafford, left back.
Unbelievable.
And Zac Djellab's got him at 7th.
Well,
Who's at 6?
Because 2025, right, there is an element of, you got to talk about who's won silverware. This man's won 2. This man has won 2 pieces of silverware. Obviously, the Conference League, but the Club World Cup. And for me, that's where he goes and sits. There's always a lot of talk about... Oh, God, I've got to jump up high. There's always a lot of talk...
Which one's bigger for you, Zach? The Conference League or
the
Club World Cup?
Club World Cup for me. Yeah, happily Club World Cup. You play clubs from all over the continent, and then the team that beat Liverpool in the Champions League. Yeah. We then beat them in the Club World Cup final.
Because they were tired after facing us.
Yeah, but so were Chelsea.
And yet there are still murmurings, aren't there, at the bridge?
As I said to you at the start of the show, there's murmurings all the time when you lose 2 games at Chelsea. That's just part of what Chelsea's history as a fan base is around managers, unfortunately. But he is somebody who I think... Again, I mentioned it earlier, I think still learning a lot in the job, like I'd say Iraola is as well at times. But he's still learning in the job. I think he having to deal with a very tough fan base on managers. Like, it takes a lot, I think, for the Chelsea fan base to warm to you. I think even if you ask Thomas Tuchel that, I think people forget when Tuchel first took over at Chelsea, he had a rough time because he was coming in after Frank Lampard, and then obviously the real reason as to people went to him was because they won the Champions League. It's quite a easy one to do. But
if he doesn't get into your top 5, then he's won 2 trophies. Iraola is currently second in the league. Who's fifth?
Fifth is Pep Guardiola. Fifth is Pep Guardiola for 2025. I think if you actually remember of 2025.
What was that face about, Carl? Would you have him higher?
I'm interested in 765 here. This has gone...
In 2020, this is the year, so this is right now. This isn't historically what
I know.
history.
For 2025, at the start of 2025 until the end of the season nearly, Man City were one of the best teams in the league. They were really, really impressive in 2025 last season. It was the first half of the season last year where they were really, really poor. Look, this season, again, I still think there are... Like we mentioned with Liverpool, there are definitely learnings, I think, for a lot of these new players coming in. I think the back line isn't amazing right now for City either. But he's still got Champions League football quite comfortably in the end with Man City for such a poor start to the season. And again, if we're talking about 2025, City were good in the second half of the last season. So yeah, that's why
I won't hear a bad word said about him, so I agree.
Sorry, I thought you were saying put him lower on the list.
No, but I mean, classically, he's obviously maybe the greatest manager in history.
Yeah.
Like, instinctively, everybody would have him very high, wouldn't they? So to say fifth, 4 managers being above Pep Guardiola for their performance in 2025, I think is a big statement.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think when you see the managers, it'll make sense.
Okay, who's
we'll be the judges.
Yeah, well, you'll be the judges.
Let's have a look.
4 for me is Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe is, for me, somebody I've always really enjoyed the kind of return of Eddie Howe, because post-Bournemouth, everyone used to say his defence was really, really poor. What did he do? He went and studied with Diego Simeone at Atletico Madrid, learned about the defensive structure that he wants to use, and I think you can look in Newcastle and see how his defensive game has improved. I do think he genuinely does improve players when they're under him. I think he's managed to get this Newcastle side back into the Champions League. That's no mean feat. And the big one, they won a trophy. They won a trophy last season in 2025, and Newcastle fans were gagging for that. If they could get a trophy and Champions League football qualification, they would have been over the moon. And I think he's done such an incredible job at that, and that's why he's got to be in the top.
You've convinced me.
Yeah, I think all of the players just improved so much under Eddie Howe. It doesn't feel like any player has gone backwards. Every player, to a man, has improved.
I agree. You can argue a counter for any of these managers, right? My only thing would be, I think Eddie Howe was quite responsible for the summer that Newcastle just had because of all the movements around the club. And I think...
Do you not think he handled that really well? I think Eddie Howe handled the summer brilliantly, given how difficult it was with Alexander Isak behind the scenes and some of the rejections that were very public. I think Eddie Howe, as the front man for Newcastle United, did the most amazing job there.
I'll politically maybe slightly disagree.
He doesn't have a sporting director. He didn't have a CEO all summer. So
he didn't have a sporting director because the last sporting director he didn't particularly, gel with, shall we say? And that was partly their own relationship. So, maybe I don't want to get too much into the weeds of that, but I would say that was partly his responsibility. And so I would say 4 is maybe very fair based on a lot of the results. Okay. And I think maybe in time we'll see, hey, you still did really well with Visser and Voltemado and all the other signings you've had. I also think that this summer, Newcastle could have moved a lot smarter and gotten themselves in a much better position much earlier in the summer, regardless of the Alexander Isak
situation. A League Cup and Champions League football, though, that's got to be a success.
Well, that's why he's top 4.
With that.
4, there we are. What's 3?
3 is the Arsenal manager, Mikel Arteta. Look, they didn't win the silverware last season. I think that's being impact. But Arsenal are really good. Arsenal are really good. They're consistently battling at the top end of the Premier League. They definitely had maybe a down year for what their expectations were last season. But you look into this year as well, because I think Arsenal probably
Has he had a better 2025 than Eddie Howe?
I think yes.
If you're looking at just silverware, no, quite obviously. But I do think looking into this season as well, what he's managed to do in the summer, really, really impressive. And I think if you ask a lot of those players that ended up joining, they probably say the reason was Mikel Arteta. He does have a really, really good way with players. And also, right now, if you're looking at the league, it pains me to say it, but I do think Arsenal are probably the most convincing of trying to do the title charge at the moment.
He's built one of, if not the strongest team in the Premier League.
Completely agree. But again, when it comes to 2025, you'll see why the other two managers are ahead of him. You can probably, predict who they are now.
We're going to have to see both of them at the same time, kind of.
What a tease.
Okay, well, it is these two. Glasner for 2, Slot for number 1.
In that order?
In that order, yeah. Look, Oliver Glasner, incredible manager. He does some brilliant things with that Palace squad. Got them playing amazing football, especially for some of their parts. Got really maximum quality out of the squad. Should, in my opinion, be playing in the Europa League as well. But they've done an incredible job. Obviously won Palace the FA Cup as well. Then also in the Community Shield, did an incredible job there as well.
19 games unbeaten.
It's ridiculous.
And
it's a joke.
They've beaten Liverpool 3 times now, right?
It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. I think, there's maybe an argument for people to actually put him 1 at times for 2025. It wouldn't shock me. But the reason Arne Slot is number 1, if you go back and look at the start of last season, when everyone had their predictions, nobody, not one person, was saying Arne Slot would win the league with Liverpool. They looked at the Liverpool squad, said, you can't take over after such a dominant manager like Jurgen Klopp and put his own things on it. And he did such an incredible job. It's been spoken many times about how well he did last season. And he deserves the credit for that. Look, has 2025 gone off to a flyer? I actually would kind of say, yeah, for Liverpool. Okay, they had a bad result midweek against Galatasaray, and they had a bad result on the weekend against Palace. The Crystal Palace side, who we've just mentioned, are doing incredible things at the moment. They are still managing to find ways to win games. And if they're able to do that while still getting this team to gel together in 2025, I don't think it's a bad sign at all. I think he's managed to bring in some incredible players as well in the summer. We just spent 20 minutes in the previous part of the video talking about how incredible some of those signings are. And a lot of that, I think, comes down to him as well. I think he handles himself brilliantly in press conferences, same as Oliver Glasner. For me, Arne Slot, probably just ahead, and the Premier League makes a big difference.
So that's your 10.
As a Liverpool fan, I know it sounds weird to say, I think he had a great 2024 going into 25, and that gave him some momentum.
Yeah.
But arguably, you could say that Mikel Arteta might have had a better 2025 than Arne. You could mix those two around. Obviously, he won the league, and that's great.
But
that was a result of
2024.
A lot of 2024 building up to that. And then this guy, I mean, if he goes to another club, then you never know.
Well, I'm sure people will let us know their thoughts at home. There we go, our top 10 ranking of the best Premier League managers in 2025. As I said, let us know your thoughts of those choices at home.